If you are working on starting a nonprofit, you know just how complex the process can feel sometimes. In this video, I'm going to answer 6 questions that you all as viewers have asked about the process of starting a nonprofit. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director. I make these videos here on YouTube all about things like starting a nonprofit or social enterprise or creating a social impact in other ways. I hope, as always, that you find this video helpful and useful. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I also have a website, foundertofulltime.com, where I offer some online trainings on starting a nonprofit or developing a sustainable fundraising plan. So I hope that you get a chance to check those out too. Similar to the last video that I did where I answered viewer and audience questions, some of the questions I'm going to talk through today are common ones that I get frequently, and some are pretty specific. But I wanted to include them because who knows, maybe you have this question or maybe it's something that you wish you would have asked as soon as you hear what it is. And all these questions have to do with topics and themes like the nonprofit legal and financial structure, all the way to what kinds of programs can you run. Once again, the goal of answering these viewer questions is to help shed a light on some of these nuances to all things nonprofits. So I really hope that you find this helpful. Let's dig into our 6 questions. Question number 1 is from user Julie M. Not sharing last names here to protect the innocent. Julie asks, when you say nonprofit, does that mean I will not make a profit? Okay, so there are a couple of things to unpack here. I'm going to break this down into 2 possible interpretations of your question, Julie, and others who might be asking this. The first is, can the organization make a profit? And the second one, based on how this question was phrased here, is, can I, the person starting the organization, can I make a profit? I also want to differentiate between profit and revenue. This is an important distinction. I think people confuse these terms a lot when thinking about this question. So a common misconception, because it's called nonprofit, is that nonprofits can't make income, revenue, profit, okay? So that is not true. Organizations can, and I hope, are generating revenue and profit. And the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is that if a nonprofit makes a profit above and beyond their expenses, they have excess funds, all funds need to be poured back into the organization and its mission. This is different from what you would see in a for-profit business where the profits would possibly be divvied out to owners or stakeholders of the business. So I hope that that makes sense. Nonprofits can and should make money. It's just that all of the money needs to be poured back into the organization's mission, not be distributed to shareholders. But this gets to the second part of what I mentioned. Can I, or the founder or a person leading the organization, make a profit? So they can't make a profit as a shareholder, as I just mentioned, because this is not a for-profit business. This is a nonprofit. But what can happen is that you can be hired to work as paid staff for the nonprofit organization. You can be hired for the nonprofit that you started. You can be hired to work for some other nonprofit that you did not start. You can be a paid staff member of a nonprofit, but you cannot hire yourself to work for the nonprofit. The board of directors of the organization has to vote to hire you and vote on what your salary is, even if you're the founder. The idea here is that because nonprofits are formed and are given special tax privileges in order to fulfill a public social mission, there cannot be conflicts of interest that allow a single individual to inappropriately financially benefit from the nonprofit. I hope that that clarifies and makes sense. That is definitely kind of a nuanced one that I get a lot. The second question is from Patrick C. Patrick asks, do I need to set up a nonprofit to donate to nonprofits? The answer is no. You can donate to any nonprofit at any time you want without having to be or form a nonprofit yourself. In this case, you're simply a donor. You're just someone giving money to a nonprofit, even if you want to give money to lots of nonprofits. Now, if you're going to host a fundraiser as an individual, you need to give all the money to the nonprofit, and if you don't, then what you keep for yourself would be considered income according to the IRS, and you'd have to pay personal taxes on that. So just clarifying the difference there. The third question here is from user SS. The question is, if you cannot sell a nonprofit, what happens when a larger company wants to take over your nonprofit and merge it with their brand? Okay, there are a couple of things to clarify here. The first is I want to address this thing about selling a nonprofit. You can't sell a nonprofit. This is something I discussed in another video with a wonderful attorney friend of mine who was gracious enough to answer some questions on camera. You should go check out that video for sure. But because a nonprofit is not a business, you don't, even if you're the founder, you don't own the nonprofit, so you can't sell what you don't own. It's not like a business that you own. A nonprofit is formed to be led by a board of directors that represents the community at large. And so there isn't an owner of a nonprofit. It's a public entity in a way. Thus, you cannot sell it. So that's part one to clarify. The second thing is, what happens when a larger company wants to take over your nonprofit and merge it with their brand? Okay. So the use of the word company here implies for-profit business, and so you can't, because you can't sell a nonprofit, you can't sell a nonprofit to a business either. But if you're talking about, can a larger nonprofit merge with another nonprofit? The answer is yes. Nonprofits have mergers all the time, but it's not like an acquisition. It's not like a hostile, well, hopefully it's not like a hostile takeover. In the nonprofit world, you would have to, if you want to merge with another nonprofit, you would take a look at each other's finances. You would make a decision to do this based on the fact that your missions are either the same or they align really well with each other. There'd be some clarification around who's going to be in charge of what staff of which organizations are kept around, all sorts of things, just like another type of merger. That is very different than selling a nonprofit. So a little bit of nuance there too. Question number 4. Okay, this is from the Russ. Can a nonprofit have an IPO and sell stock shares as a public nonprofit? Okay, so this one is interesting because we've established already a nonprofit is not like a business that you own. So you can't sell the nonprofit, you can't make a personal profit, and you also can't sell shares of the nonprofit. However, there's a really interesting movement happening right now that is exploring this concept of having shares to nonprofits. And I think it might be TechSoup. I need to go look up which organization was experimenting with this new model. But the idea is it's like a social investment, like you're making a monetary investment in the nonprofit in the hopes that it will have certain social impact returns and possibly financial returns. But it's very, very early on in the exploration of this concept. I have no idea where it's going to go. It's very fascinating to me, but as of right now, no, you cannot. Or at least, no, you cannot in the mainstream without very, very specific legal requirements like this one organization experimenting with it has tried. This 5th question is from user named Phil, and this one is about programming a bit. Phil asks, what about having an organization that does multiple things? For example, I'm an artist and want to promote art in schools, but I also collect clothing to send to Liberia and Colombia, and I want to create a program for students in Trenton, New Jersey. What can I do? Okay, Phil, it sounds like you have a huge heart for so many different things, and that's awesome. Here's what you can do. Okay. You could start a nonprofit that does a variety of things that are like kind of all in different directions, but you're going to run into some problems here. The first is when you go to register your nonprofit with the IRS might feel very confused about what you're trying to accomplish, and so that potential confusion could throw up a red flag for them, and they might reject your application to become a nonprofit. So that's part one. But part two is, let's say you do actually get the official tax exempt status, you're able to get your official nonprofit status, and you go out there and you start doing all these things. The second problem you're going to run into is public and donor confusion. And if you think that this isn't a big deal, it is. If someone does not very, very clearly understand your mission, they're not going to donate to you. They're not going to sign up to volunteer because they don't quite get how it's going to help. So a danger of doing too many things that are very, very different from one another is that public perception and confusion that you're not making a measurable difference in one particular area. So I hope that helps you think through things. Okay, the sixth and final question we're going to cover here today is from William M. William asks, from your experience, what kind of criteria do you use to measure the success of your organization? Is it the number of followers on Facebook or the amount of money raised? Okay, William, here's what I think. I think it's neither of those things. Think back to why you're starting a nonprofit in the first place. You want to make a difference. You want to perhaps move the needle on a specific community or social issue. You want to improve people's lives, right? So in my opinion, since that's the reason you start a nonprofit in the first place, that's how also you measure your success, is how many people helped, how many people served, how many lives changed, stuff like that. Now, you do need financial resources in order to do those things, and it helps also to have a social media audience to do those things, but those wouldn't be what I would measure success by. And every organization is going to need a different budget and a different social media audience in order to achieve what their specific goal is. An organization that's focused on raising widespread awareness about an issue might need or benefit from a much larger social media platform than a community-based organization that serves seniors who don't even want to get on social media in the first place. So really, there's so many variables that would change based on the mission and scope of your cause. But the one thing that would stay the same in terms of how you measure your success is, did you reach your community outcomes? Did you change lives? All right, so what did you think? Did you get some of your questions about starting a nonprofit answered? What questions remain? Share in the comments below. I hope that you found this helpful and useful. I have some resources that I have. I do a newsletter for changemakers and nonprofit leaders. The link to subscribe to that is in the description. I'll send out news and trends and funding opportunities, etc. I also, as I mentioned before, have my foundertofulltime.com website with some trainings on starting a nonprofit and creating a sustainable fundraising plan as well. Finally, if you've seen my other videos, you know what's coming. I have a Facebook group, Change the World or Bust. We have 3,500, some thousands of people in there, all who have a dream of making an impact in their own way, having some conversations with each other, and I hope you can join us. Thanks again. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I'll see you next time.